I'd like to call upon Chris Hickman. Chris, I know you've been doing a phenomenal amount of work in India. You've been here, every time I'm here. Most of the times I've seen you here. So tell me a little bit about, give an overview of what you're doing here and what are some of the key areas that you think are important.
Our work here is with our partner utilities, and a lot of what I've done since I've come to India is actually learned. So it might surprise many people in the room today. Some of my compatriots from INREL and different places that I think India is by far and away far ahead of the U.S. in many aspects. There are things going on here that won't happen in the United States for another decade or two. The reasons for that are very much the difference between a growth economy and one that's not growing from an electrical consumption basis. And so we are honored to be here and to have partnered with Reliance for our first project, and since then several other utilities with Bescom and Tata, and moving forward with CESC and doing some just pretty incredible projects here with an open mind. The thing that I think that India has above all is the ability to have an open mind and look at this differently than developed nations. Europe and the US have a very strong belief system of how a power grid works and have a very limited view on its ability to change. The conversations that we get to have here are spectacular because the minds are open, and what will be built here in India will be very, very different than what is built in America and what is built in Europe. And I think you're hearing the challenges, you're hearing the numbers. The work that ISGF has done in cooperation with the Central Electric Regulatory Authority, as well as the state regulatory agencies, far exceeds the quality of work that has been done in the US because it's simple, it's concise, and it's very well understood and very implementable. Their smart grid policy framework is 41 pages. What DOE and our government came up with was 974. Which one would you rather read? So when you think about the structure, I think for me personally, looking at India, I think it's important most of all at this stage in the evolution is to make sure that you understand the goal. And if the goal is truly electrification for all people, then remember the numbers. So today, let me just do a little math for you. So in the United States, we peak, call it 900 gigawatts. It's really around 965-ish, but call it 900 gigawatts for 350 million people. And net in the US, that's 4,200 units per person. If you look at all the EIA data, Energy Information Administration data, it shows that a country tips over, their economic GDP tips over at about 1,700 units per person. I think that number's too high for what it is 10 years from now for all the reasons that have been stated here with LEDs, distributed resources. And I think where you look at a 1,300 unit number per person in India for 1.2 billion people, that says you need 900 gigawatts in peak, okay? So the gap that's got to be closed from a variety of resources has to close that gap. And I think defining electrification as the goal versus all of the elemental pieces of how you do that would be a great part of the overall national strategy to make sure that the goal of electrification for all people here to change the country's capability on a go-forward basis is a key as we roll forward. Because I think as we've proven with all the things that you've heard so far, the technical capability exists. It's the will of the government and the will of the regulatory community to define the goal and drive that goal forward that will be the difference. Thanks.
Wonderful. Thank you, Chris.